one time, go grab your guns. I'll tell you one time, this day belongs to us. Why?
That's right. That's all that's left after the fighting. The war room. Hello! Welcome, good evening, with your new name. I believe that's Mad Sexty, now known as that bearded guy. But hello, and welcome to the war room. This is day 205 of Russia's, frankly, illegal incursion into the Ukraine. And we are going to do something slightly different tonight. We're going to go kind of back and forth between the old way we did it and the new way we're going to do it, because I've started to realize that part of the war room is a planning and plotting room based on not always the most perfect intel, right? That's what they do in a war room. They say, we think that this is going to be here, and we think that's going to be there, and we have to preemptively do this. So, yes, so Mad Sexy has confirmed that he is now the bearded clam. I mean, that bearded guy. Haha, just kidding. Anyway, I hope you guys liked the thumbnail. It was just something that I thought of. I've had this thought in my head for several, well, weeks, actually, but I brought it up to the guys in the panel, and I figured we're going to run with it for the show today. So you may hear something like this several times because that is part of the theme song, and that was the exact moment that John Travolta's character Deacon came out of the smoking ashes of what was left of supposedly his stealth bomber. So the theme of today's show, let me pull up my notes right quick because I worded it differently. Will Putin have a broken arrow moment? And I don't think that's exactly clear on what that means. So back when this movie came out, like if you think there's spoilers now, then where the fuck have you been? Because this movie's been out forever. Anyway, the movie Broken Arrow was about a plot to steal a nuclear device from a stealth bomber that faked an accident and crashed. And their protocol was to jettison the warheads before crashing, I think. Or at least that's what they did in the movie as a safety protocol. So anyway, John Travolta basically punches out after he gets his co-pilot out, and Christian Slater, that's it. So they both bail out. But the thing is Christian Slater knows what he's doing because he's starting to figure it out, and then they get into a little bit of fight in the cockpit, and he ejects Slater, and then he gets on the radio and he makes his fake message, and then he drops all the warheads, and then he punches out because I mean the plane only had I think 2 on it anyway. So, long story short, he steals a weapon with a rich mercenary prick, basically. And him and Howie Long and a small crew of other mercenaries basically are trying to take these two warheads, use one as a warning so the military takes them seriously. And then they're basically holding it ransom, the country. And they're like, look, you pay us this amount of money, and we will give you the warhead, and we will disarm it. Because he doesn't want to kill his own fellow Americans, he just wants money. Because he'll be collecting 20% on a beach, or something like that. While the world enjoys the world's safest automobile, or some bullshit like that, I can't remember. And HVS is right. It had really a very meandering and weak plot. But the part that stuck out to me the most was not the quote that they used in the movie previews. Because in the movie previews, there was a fight between him and Christian Slater, and he was like, "Ain't it cool?" That's not it. Not it. And the other recurring theme throughout the movie was they kept betting each other and passing back and forth the same $20. I bet you $20 you can't do this, or I bet you $20 that I could beat you in the ring in a spar, just stuff like that, right? And at the end of the movie, he's like, I bet you $20 you can't get through me to disarm this bomb. But before he does that, he had to arm the bomb. And he had a disagreement with his partner, Howie Long, and he knows he's about to lose and get caught and defeated. So he lights a cigarette, smokes it, takes a big drag off of it, and he goes, you know what? Fuck them if they can't take a joke. And he arms the bomb, which means he's ready to blow up something. And I think the train was headed into like Denver. So anyway, the question I have is Putin about to have a broken arrow moment? Will he have one? Will he say, fuck them if they can't take a joke? Or, I guess if I do it in Russian, it's, fuck them if they can't take a joke. Anyway, and nuke Ukraine, or all of Europe, because he's got the largest nuclear arsenal in the world, and he's got the delivery devices to do it, and he could just push a couple of buttons, and there goes Kyiv, there goes Berlin, there goes Warsaw, there goes Paris, whatever, right? And what would it take, or what has transpired so far, to push him into a corner to where he realizes there's no way out, so he might as well go out in a blaze of glory, much to the detriment of the entire world. So that's the question we're going to ask today. I have 13 stories to present to you to sort of support that argument, and we'll go around the room and talk about it. So let me go ahead and drag in my panelists. This is Scott P79. I just have him listed in Cyrillic as Scottish Naya, so good evening to you.
Yep.
And this is Mikhail Nightstrikesky, also known as Nightstrike with a Y.
Hey, what's going on?
And looks like he actually made it on time, which means he really wanted to be here. The Warsaw Patriot, who is currently fighting several conditions right now, which will remain anonymous. Just, he doesn't need that business out there, but whatever. So good evening to you.
It's the Chinese virus.
Shit.
The
So he's
Chinese
got Kung Flu matched with some other crap. Anyway,
Yeah.
scroller on the bottom has been updated. Apparently Ukraine's been quite busy, as
They have
usual. They're just...
Actually, I saw an updated map.
Yeah.
They've taken quite a good portion back.
Hey, Sean,
2,300 square miles.
Uh-huh.
Sean, I'll say this. Slava Ukraina!
Oh, we do that at the end of the show.
Yeah, we do it at the end.
No, but still, you gotta give them guys props, man. They're kicking fucking ass.
Oh no, they're definitely giving them what for? It's just-
2,300 square miles.
I mean, if you look at a map from before when the Russians had the land to now, it's like, what are the Russians doing?
well, it's easy to reclaim land when your enemy is in full retreat.
Did you see the video I sent you, Sean? It was up to
Several.
Ukraine that were actually thanking their own soldiers for liberating them.
Oh yeah.
Dude, it just shows you. I'm not there, but I could feel for them because I could not imagine being under Russian occupation since 2014 in those areas.
And
Well-
Sean, later on, if you want to argue with this, we can. But I'm skeptical on how many well-maintained missiles the Russians have to use against anybody else. If we look at how poorly their tanks were maintained.
Let's address that now. because Scott and I talked about this morning, and I want to do it by the numbers.
Okay.
It is estimated that Russia has over 7,500 nuclear weapons, warheads. That's a lot.
7,500?
7,500. 7,500.
Is that
Of-
including Soviet era?
All
yeah,
of them.
that's including
Total.
everything.
Total.
Of that, I argue only about 25% of that is about usable because those are the ones that have been maintained.
I'll do
whereas-
you one better than that. 1%.
You think it's
1%.
1%.
Okay? So if he had 1% of his entire nuclear arsenal, that's 75 warheads.
That's still a
It's
lot.
still the end of the world.
Right.
Now,
Because
here's a question. Where's those
better
nukes
yet,
located?
0.1%. Okay? If he had 7 warheads and he was pissed off in one shot, Warsaw, Poland, Paris, France,
Hungary.
Berlin, Germany, Kiev,
London.
Ukraine, London, England.
Czech Republic.
Well, I'm picking the big heavy hitters here.
You can still go after.
The
obviously.
Vatican. And let's see. Let's pick one more big one.
Well,
You wouldn't go after
Vatican-
Canada, would he?
the Vatican
Helsinki,
would
Finland.
The Vatican
That's 7.
would cause issue. If
Wait.
he actually targeted the Vatican, he'd have to target all of South America. But
Um,
South
It doesn't
America
matter.
would probably-
This is why we're
You'll
talking
still target
about.
anybody.
That's why the quote "fuck him if they can't take a joke" is so important here. He's not
Sean.
thinking about the repercussions of
Sean,
what he's about to do.
There's 2 places outside I think he would go after. Finland, he would go after, and
I said
what was the other one?
Helsinki.
Well,
Pay
Kaliningrad
attention.
also. Kaliningrad too.
No, it's too small. Doesn't matter. If he drops a nuclear weapon on Warsaw, the nuclear fallout will make everyone sick within 50 to 100 miles.
Yeah.
Including his own people there. Dumbass.
The point is,
He's
that's
not-
what
He
fuck
sent
him
his
if-
own people to Chernobyl.
That's what fuck them if they can't take a joke is all about. Don't you see? I'm in a corner. I'm a rat in a corner. I got nothing else to lose. I'm just going to burn everything on the way out. That's what I'm talking about.
It's the scorched earth policy.
That's
again.
1/10 of 1% of his arsenal. 7 missiles.
The question is he really that stupid enough to actually do that?
That doesn't matter.
Whether he's stupid or not, does he think he's backed into a corner enough to
Right.
actually use
Where
it?
all logic and reasoning is irrelevant because he knows he's not coming out of this alive.
Well,
Why don't
logic
just
and-
somebody
logic
pop
and
his ass and be
reason's
done with it?
Already irrelevant with him anyway, so it's not really. That's not really a part of this. It's whether he feels he's backed into a corner enough to
Do
his
that.
His only response is to use nuclear weapons.
Yes. Yes. And the question you just asked, why don't someone just cap him? You got to remember, first of all, there's a country where none of the population have guns in Russia.
Russian mafia does.
Right, but he's got them in his back pocket.
No,
So-
but think about it. I just
Look,
Not
theoretically,
anymore.
A certain turtle that loves chocolate is out
Think
there.
of how many checkpoints you have to pass if you were his 2 head generals to get into a room where you still have to sit 60 feet away from him.
Yeah.
I'm talking.
You're not going to cap him.
If he gets outside of the Kremlin, there's an
He's
opportunity
not
where
gonna
you could.
step out outside.
Dude, he is Führer bunkered more than Adolf Hitler ever was right now.
Yeah.
And he's got enough yes men and fanatics to stick with him to the end.
So you're telling me there's not a lot of Russians in Russia right now that would actually want to pop his ass right
There's
now?
no one armed enough to do it.
Takes
That's
a
the
fucking
point.
full pistol.
The 2 people who could have done it are no longer, or one of them has been dismissed already. They're gone. Shoigu, dismissed. So now there's only one guy who passes through 7 checkpoints before he gets to go into the room that still makes him sit 60 feet away from him on the other end of a table. He's covering his bases here.
Okay, here's a thought: plastic knife in the boot. Did you just smuggle a plastic knife?
Oh, Jesus. All right,
This- I don't know.
stop thinking Call of Duty and just think of the actual thing that we already know he has in his bunker.
He's
Okay.
well equipped. I'm getting that.
Yeah, they have talked about how many hoops even his top 2 generals have to jump through just to go see him. and they are
Remember-
disarmed at the gate.
Remember who he met yesterday?
Who?
Xi Jinping.
Exactly.
Oh, Jesus. The communist.
Yep. The Chinese communist.
Why? No, here's a question. Why does he want to talk to the president of China? Or dictator of China, I mean.
Because they are
he's
the
trying
new
to- he's trying
axis
to
of
get their
evil.
back. He's trying to. He's also actually entertaining the idea of getting North Korean assistance too.
No, he
which
already
I'm-
did. That's already a done
He
deal.
already, he already
that's
got
already done
supplies
deal.
from them.
Okay.
He's already done deal. He's got. This is the new axis of evil.
Iran,
if you've
China,
been
and North
living with your
Korea.
head in the sand for the last 7 months.
Yeah.
Iran is supplying drones that are rip-offs of the American ones that they captured, and they're not
That
as
don't
good.
work.
The Chinese are they're buying the oil, and they're buying whatever Russia is selling, energy and whatnot, because they're the only buyer that's not having to deal with import restrictions because they share a border, more or less, right? The North Koreans they're already done an arms deal with North Korea. So for us, most of you watching and us, we're excited about that deal because when this stupid war is all over, then Varosteleka and Ivan the Bear Tactical and every Soviet army stuff, we're going to be buying surplus North Korean helical magazines for our AKs. So fuck yeah. Awesome. Like how many of those do you think the Ruskies are going to drop when they
Those are the
realize
ones that
these
attach
fucking
to the
things
bayonet
jam?
lug, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, those
100
are awesome.
rounders.
They probably suck, but
You talking about the tubular mags?
You know what? I am looking forward to the day where Ian McCollum goes, look, you people are idiots. These are just like those calico mags. You just have to crank the handle 21 times like it says in Korean right here across the top.
Actually,
Well,
Sean,
Sean, what you need to do is you buy a bunch of them and then write out some English instructions
Yes.
and market it, because that way you make a lot of money.
See, the thing is I can't admit that on camera. I'll have to tell you off air. We know a Korean who's living in Korea, and I've tried to acquire one of these things, and even he can't get one. We
He
can
can't
only
get
get it from Russian surplus.
I know, Sean. Here's a question: Didn't the Russians already had a Heelger mag? It was the
Not like
Bison.
that one.
It was a Bison.
It was on the
9 millimeter.
Bison.
Yeah, but
Not
that's a
the
9mm,
47s,
isn't
the
it?
74s.
It was 9
Helical
Mac.
mags. Only the Northies have the
762
47 and 74 helical mags.
Yep.
Yeah, the Bison was
Those
9
are
Mac.
those are custom to their country.
It's still a concept. That's why I was asking if that's the same thing.
It's a similar concept, but it's a much smaller round, so it's a much more compact design. Whereas the North Korean one, it still rocks into the magwell like
It's
an
fucking
AK
ugly
one
looking.
does. Actually, no, I think the way you attach it is you actually feed it up into the bayonet lug first and then pivot it up into your magwell. That's the only way I can see it fitting. And even then, it probably jiggles a little bit, which probably led to feeding issues. Like side to
You
side.
did.
I'm not a fan of it. If I actually wanted to buy one of those things, it's ugly looking.
I want a 6-pack of them just to say I have them.
Yeah,
Like,
What reason?
They might run like shit, but they look cool.
they do look.
Every
pretty
time I look at it, it looks like a falsified version of a grenade launcher.
good.
That's
It
even
looks-
better.
It looks like an extended drum magazine. Is what.
I like HVS's English instructions. Like, I'll just look at the Hangul and be like, I don't speak this moon speak, and I'm not going to bother my mom with this shit, so I'm just going to write non-functional collector item to keep the ATF off my heels.
Ooh.
I mean, that's why not, right?
Right.
Anyway, so we're goofing off a little bit, but I guess let me start off by saying that this week has been an emotional roller coaster for me. Number one, obviously, Her Royal Majesty has died. And I don't know why it bothers me, but it just bothers me. She seems like a cool lady. She's dead. I know it's over. That's the first thing. Second thing was Sunday, after many beers and bowls of chili with my dad, I had to rush him to the emergency room in the middle of the night, and I didn't get home until 7 o'clock Monday morning. So
How's
I
he
missed a
doing
day
now?
of work.
How's he doing now?
He's fine. They're bringing him into his arthroscopic surgeon in 7 days, a week from today. And they're going to run this test where they hook a bunch of sensors up to him on his wrists, his biceps, his ankles, and his big toes.
Mhm.
I guess it's like a sort of they're checking your blood pressure at all the extremities.
So similar to a sleeping test.
No, not like an apnea test because he doesn't have breathing problems. He has
No,
heart,
but it's based on
heart
computer
problems.
assesses you and all
A
that. That's what-
circulation test.
Yeah, it's a circulation test of sorts. They call it the ankle something test. But anyway, I suspect what's going to happen is he's 87, so they're going to probably do the same thing they did to Tony, pacemaker defibrillator type thing, just to keep him normaled out. Because in the 7.5 hours that I was in the ER with him, they hooked him up to this machine, and like he was asking me what all these things are on the screen, and because I went to med school and I did my residency, I could tell him more or less what all those things are. There was some changes since the time I went in, but I was like, oh yeah, this is your EKG, this is your blood pressure, this is your everything. And he was, every once in a while, this bright orange light would come on, and it would start beeping at me, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. And I was like, okay, his resting heart rate was somewhere between 85 to 95 beats a minute, and I'm like, cool. What was happening is about every 15 to 20 seconds, his pulse would drop to 30. And I'm like, and then the light would come on. And then as soon as it went back up to 90, the automatic bladders on the sensors around his biceps would check his blood pressure to make sure he's okay. Like every 30 minutes it was doing that. And every time the light and the beep went off, he was like, "Will that thing shut the fuck up?" And I was just like, "Look, calm down, okay? It's a sensor. They see it in their room because the nurse is in a room watching everyone's emergency room sensors." I was like, "If it was serious, they'd be running in here right now." And he's like, "It's still really annoying." So I was like, "Well, let's just talk about something else to keep your mind off the beeping." He's like, "Fine." So we just talked about a little bit of everything and anything. And what was really funny is every time he mentioned my mom, his pulse would skyrocket to 150.
Oh, Jesus.
Every time. It didn't matter what it was.
Often.
Just the mention of her. His pulse would go up to 150 and his blood pressure would spike. Every time. And
I guess you're
at
doesn't
the
like-
first 4 or 5 times I looked at it, I was like, I'm not going to say nothing. But when he kept
knows.
doing it, I'm like, listen, I got to tell you something. He's like, what? And I said, this number here and this number here. This is your pulse and this is your blood pressure. He's like, yeah. And I was like, every time you talk about mom, this goes up. And he heard me say mom, and it went up. I was like, see? And he goes, shit, what do I do? And I'm like, get her out of your mind. And he was like, can I just put her in the ground? When
Oh,
he
geez.
said that, his pulse came back down. So
That's
anyway.
not good.
So the ER doc, it was a conga line, dude. There was ultrasound tech that came in. They checked his legs, his ankles, his everything. There's a X-ray tech that came in. They have this machine that's like, it looked like a handheld Zamboni machine. Like it was about a little bit longer than a shopping cart, but it was like tall, like a Zamboni. And he pushed it in, and it was an X-ray machine. So they did X-rays while he was in the ER bed. He didn't have to get up. It was one line after another, just specialist this, and everybody came in. Finally, the ER doctor came in because he was in contact with my dad's arthroscopic surgeon, because before I took him to the ER, I called them and I told him what was going on, and I was like, I'm on my way. And I did 14 miles in 6 minutes. Don't ask how fast I was going. Anyway.
130?
More than that. I'll put it to you this way. On the way there, my dad asked me why the dotted line in the middle was straight. And the other thing is he goes, you don't have to get pulled over on my account. To which my response was, no, I actually want to get pulled over. He says, why is that? And I said, because I will pull over and wave my hands out the window, and when the officer comes up to my window, I'm going to tell him that you're having a heart attack and I'm trying to take you to the ER. And then we'll get blues and twos and a fucking escort. And he just looks at me and goes, man, you thought of everything. So anyway, the ER doctor came in around 4 or 5 in the morning. And I look and feel like a bag of smashed assholes at this point, because I had been up since 5 a.m. the day before. And so I'm like, so what's going on? And he explains what's going on. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, can you tell us what that orange light in the sensor thing is? Because it was really annoying him. And he goes, we know. The nurses thought it was hilarious because there's a microphone in the room, and they can hear your dad getting upset every time it beeped. But we didn't want to tell you what it was because we didn't want to alarm him. And I said, so what is it? And he goes, how do I describe this? And he goes, Imagine a fat kid trying to keep up with you while you're doing laps in a gym. I'm like, okay. And he's like, so your heart is the fat kid, and you are the guy running laps in the gym. And every once in a while, the fat kid slows down. He goes, hang on a second. I need a breather. Just wait. I'll keep up. Just wait a minute. And I'm like, so you're saying his heart slows down? And he goes, no. Every 15 to 22 beats, your dad's heart stops. I was like, what? And he goes, it just stops. It just wants to take a break. And I'm like, so why does it say 30? And he goes, because it doesn't stop immediately, and it sort of trails off, and it sort of takes an average. So it's like, so there was a 0 in there, and it made the average drop. He goes, more or less. Like, he was trying to, like, marginalize it not to freak him out. And he goes, the part we thought that was really funny was every time he talked about his wife, his blood pressure would go up. And I'm like, yeah, that's a problem, isn't it? Anyway, that's what happened there. I told my boss at like 5, 6 in the morning. I sent a text to him. I sent pictures of my dad on the ER. And I was munching on a Whataburger for breakfast. A bacon, cheese, and jalapeno Whataburger at 5:30 in the morning. Because they weren't ready to make me breakfast yet. Whatever. So I'm eating that. And I'm telling my boss, I'm like, listen, I haven't been to bed yet. This is a picture of my dad. I'm in the ER. I'm not going to make it tomorrow. I'm going to be too tired. And he goes, it's okay. He's like, we're in the emergency room too. And I'm like, what do you mean we? And he's like, oh, my son got really sick. He had an allergic reaction, and they had to put a breathing tube down his throat because he swole up like a plump sausage. And then he sent me a picture of his kid, and his legs were huge. This is a skinny little kid, and all of a sudden his legs were like big. And splotchy, red, just hives everywhere. And I was like, so nobody's coming to work tomorrow? And he's like, no. So I had Labor Day weekend twice. And everyone had their scares or whatever. My dog got sort of sick. She's got a really bad toothache, and she's not eating. So I have to tube feed her and try to brush her teeth. And every time I put the toothbrush in her mouth, she screams like I'm stabbing her. But she won't bite me because she knows I'm not trying to hurt her deliberately. It's been a real nightmare trying to balance antibiotics and disinfectants and things in her mouth. And she's got to go in for oral surgery. And I'm not going to sell guns, but I probably could get it done a whole lot faster if I did. So anyway, that's my weekend roller coaster of shit. But hey, it's the weekend. We all made it, right? Until Putin starts firing off Roman candles with nuclear warheads on them. Anyway, I want to read this thing that HVS has been writing because he's intimately familiar with conditions of the heart. So he said he was in a recovery auditorium where 100 people were hooked up to the beeping medical monitors. Every 5 minutes heard a flatline sound. Then a patient made some sort of type-off dying death noises. Spooky. Everyone around me is dying. Maybe I'm next. Nurse asked why the beeping of the nearby monitor devices bother me. Gee, I fucking wonder why. Dude, is Hawaii like a place? Maybe that's where... You know what? Boca Raton is no longer a thing, is it? Everyone's in Hawaii dying now.
Nah, they still go to Florida.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll send
Especially if
you.
they're from New England.
I will send you my mother, and she'll finish you off very quickly, and then you don't have to wonder anymore. No, I meant to Hawaii. I'll send it to HVS. Like, I mean, why wonder if I could just send her and she could just do it instantly? Like, she is walking fentanyl, according to the doctor talking about my dad's heart rate and shit going up every time he mentioned her. Thought that was hilarious, though. Like, even when the doctor said, your wife, his pulse went boop. I was like, what the fuck? Is that Stockholm Syndrome or what? Okay, so anyway. Now that I've wasted 30 minutes of your time and everyone's been introduced and you all got the gist of what's going on, I'm going to present to you the stories that make me think that this is a situation that I'm not going to say is impossible, but I'm not going to say it's probable either. Let's just say it's infinitesimally possible.
It's possible that things will escalate.
Yeah, because we don't know what a military leader, under the level of stress he's about to be in, will react, because the last person who was under this much stress as a military leader offed himself in a bunker and then had his body taken out and buried or put in a shallow grave and poured with gasoline and lit on fire.
I don't think he's necessarily in that situation. Yes, a ton of countries have literally blacklisted him. But
No,
the
I'm
problem
saying,
is
like,
that
the last time this
they're not
happened.
attacking him. They're not attacking him from all sides.
Right, but what I'm
He's
saying
not
is
at
the last
that
time
point.
he was under this much stress of defeat, the last person that was under this much stress offed himself like a bitch.
Well, don't you mean the last person that was under that much stress turned the situation around, and now his attacker is in his situation?
Eh,
I would think Zelensky
I mean,
was
there's a
under
lot of
his
examples
freaking
of this,
stress.
right? I mean, one could draw the parallel that the siege of Stalingrad and then the counterattack, right? Or Operation Barbarossa and the counterattack. Or in the end days, the siege of Berlin. But no counterattack. No, the little bitch offed himself. At least that's what we're told. No, he didn't hop on a Vatican-funded U-boat full of Nazi gold to Argentina and live the good life until he was 131.
If that's what they claim, who knows what happened to Hitler?
I don't know. I was just trying to think like E. Honda.
Quit about thinking about him, dude.
No, listen.
He drives me nuts.
I love the comedy and the satire of conspiracy theories. He's very good at delivering them. I don't think he believes them all. He just plays a character, and I
Why
find
do you
that
stop watching
incredibly
him?
entertaining. Huh?
Why did I stop watching him?
I just find it really entertaining because somebody's got to
don't.
do it. I can't do it because he's already doing it. I don't want to take his shtick. Because I mean, I used to
No.
jokingly in the lobby always say this part is sponsored by Reynolds Wrap or whatever.
Don, here's a crazy thought that just came across my mind. If
Hmm.
Putin is not going to get removed, nobody's going to assassinate him. The only thing I can think of him actually doing with his last time in power is he's going to end up like Stalin, probably like dying like on the floor like he did.
You
He'll
mean
be
like
sitting there for a couple days.
like
Just make
pretty
like
much.
Elvis on the shitter?
No, he has a stroke and he just dies and pisses in his pants and pretty much dies in his
That's
sleep.
how everyone dies. I hate.
I
to
wonder
break
if he's
it to
got
you.
a food taster.
No, but think about it. You think that actually might happen to him?
Everybody dies that way. Don't be surprised. Everybody dies that way. Nobody truly dies of old age. Everyone dies of something failing due to old age. But the old age isn't what killed you. A system
let me ask you
failing
this: how old
killed you.
was Stalin? How old was he?
60 something.
50s or 60s, I think.
60s, I think.
No, he was way older. Actually,
Stalin died like what? 70s, 80s?
he was way older. Huh.
No, he wasn't that old.
It's really funny as it doesn't say.
The point is basically if Putin,
74.
he was 74.
He was 74.
And
And
Putin's
that's
age is
old,
what?
That's old, but that's not like real old.
There's a really funny satirical movie called The Death of Stalin
Yes, it's on Netflix.
Yeah,
with Jeffrey
I've seen it.
Tambor. Hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when they kept going into like the NKVD headquarters and they had all these like prisoners and you would just hear "Hail Stalin" right before they get shot.
And he had a Soviet trial, and then he just shot him on the spot.
Yeah. That's a pretty funny movie. Anyway, all right, so we've wasted 35 minutes of your time now. Let's go ahead and get to the stories that make me think that this is a possibility, because this has been going on for 7 months now, and there are some people who think there's two schools of thought here. If Putin can hang on long enough for the European winter, he will gain a huge advantage because he will have held most of Europe hostage via the energy crisis. At the same time, nobody wants to move around in a bitter winter for fighting, right? So the Russians will not advance, but the Ukrainians will not advance or defend either. Everyone will be like a frozen stalemate type thing. And the longer that goes on, the more that the European continent bleeds out from, rolling blackouts and famine, cold, whatever, they may start pressuring the Ukrainians into, hey, look, we really need this energy thing. Would you kind of get him to the negotiating table already? Could you make some concessions so we can get this over with? Like, that gives Putin an advantage. It gives him more leverage.
Uh-huh.
But though,
Actually,
Zelensky doesn't seem like he's the type to give in.
No, he isn't. Absolutely.
yeah, Sean, here's a question. Back to the European map. What
Mhm.
nations actually surround Russia that are actually not part of the Russian-European pipeline? Like, I know there's some Eastern Common Bloc nations that actually provide their own gas.
Estonia, Lithuania,
But
Latvia,
Georgia and Bulgaria, what about them?
Georgia, South Ossetia, Yugoslavia, well, the former Yugoslavia. The Nord Stream pipelines go through...
Through Germany, right? Mainly for Germany.
Does it go through Poland to get there, though?
Yes, it actually does, yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of the answer to your question. Because, I mean, the two main
No,
capillaries that feed Europe is Nord Stream 1 and 2.
right. No, but the thing is, if they're trying to hold hostage the rest of Europe, what about the countries like Georgia and Bulgaria, as well as the other neighboring ones? Like,
They're
could
not
they
energy
actually,
producers.
I don't know, but the point I'm getting at is, could they actually hate Ukraine against Russia's trying to do on the rest of Europe?
No. See, the whole thing is if anyone was going to help Ukraine, they would have done it already.
I'm talking about the gas, this natural gas.
None of them are producers of it. See, a
Why
lot
not?
of what's going on right now, I want to say Bulgaria was actually the one in question. They are already stockpiling natural gas
Huh.
for the winter. And a lot of
They
smaller
have been
European
since the summer.
nations, yeah, and a lot of other European nations are following suit. They're desperately capping off and compressing and doing whatever they got to do to store natural gas for the winter. They're importing it from the United States now. We're exporting again. We're a net exporter of natural gas for Europe right now because
Okay,
we're trying to bolster their energy crisis while we're in the middle of our own. Go figure.
And Armenia and Azerbaijan are now at war. Who knew?
Yeah. So essentially, the Nord Stream pipeline. You know, I'm reading the comments. When I saw Karine Jean-Pierre the first time I saw her, this was after months of the East German ginger librarian Jen Psaki. Like, I was so sick of her face. Flat eyes, flat face, no makeup, hideous.
Oh,
Like,
you mean
Really?
circle back, girl?
yeah, it's like, when was she ever hot? Never.
Never.
I don't even like the new reporter either.
Think about who was in the administration before. We had Kayleigh McEnany. She was like a
Oh my
breath
God.
of fresh air. She was cute to look at, and she was smart, right? And she was articulate. But that cuteness was Jim Acosta's Achilles heel because he thought he would catch her in gotcha moments, and she made him look like a complete idiot. Anyway, Karine Jean-Pierre shows up when Jen Psaki goes on vacation or something. And because she didn't have the job full time, they kept lobbing softball questions at her. And the thing is when I'd listen to her talk, I thought, wow, she's a breath of fresh air. She sounded very chipper and upbeat, and her answers were very just kind of beating around the bush or whatever. But it was like, at least I can listen to her voice and not feel like I'm being pestered by an East German librarian telling me to shush all the time. But when she got the job full time, it didn't take very long at all to see that she's a fucking moron. Like, she doesn't know a fucking thing that comes out of her mouth. And her handlers obviously haven't taught her properly what to say. I mean, she sounds like a complete idiot
She's like
now.
the rest of the administration.
She's
Completely
she's an
unable to
embarrassment
do
to the
their
post.
job.
You know somebody who used to do that job that didn't get a lot of credit for it long until after he had left? Ari Fleischer. Like, I thought that guy was a moron when he was George Bush's press secretary. I thought he was a moron. But after he left that office and he went on to like private, whatever endeavors or whatever, and now he's doing like interviews and book signings and speeches or whatever, the guy's a genius. Like, I sold him short. Anyway, compared to fucking Karine Jean-Pierre, like, I don't know, fucking Warsaw could do that job 1,000 times better. Because he would look at the cue cards of the answers and he'd be like, Fuck this. This is bullshit. Just tear it in half and throw it away and be like, look, I ain't got nothing to tell you guys because I ain't reading this garbage. HBS is like, she's worse than the Yankee Marshal.
I wouldn't go that far.
No, I think she is worse. She probably drives a Prius or something. At least Yankee's got a Camaro and a Charger, or Challenger, and a Mustang.
Well, I don't know what Yankees got
And a
this
Mini.
week because he had a Jeep.
And he has a Jeep too. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into the stories because this is going to be a long one, I guess. I didn't think it was going to be. First photo I got for you is here. And we're going to start on Saturday, September 10th, day 199. Russian troops are pulling back from key areas in Ukraine's Kharkiv region as the Ukrainian soldiers advance, following a major counteroffensive that was launched on September 1st. Ukrainian President Zelensky championed troop success on the front lines in the north and said that some 30 settlements had been liberated from Russian occupation during his nightly address on Friday. Last Friday, that is. Russian state-owned media outlet TASS announced Saturday that Russian Defense Ministry spokesman Igor Konashenkov said that troops would be regrouped from areas around Balaklia and Izium in the Donetsk region, suggesting that it may have been removed from the site in the first place because general retreat. Konashenkov reportedly said that the regrouping was being made in order to achieve the stated goals of the special military operation to liberate Donbass. That word salad's getting old, isn't it? Messaging that echoes claims made by Moscow after it failed to take Kyiv earlier this year. It is unclear if Russian soldiers have left Izium, which is a strategically important city for Russia's advancement in the region. Let's see. But Kyiv's hopes remain high that Ukraine's advances in recent days will continue to propel them along the front lines, and Defense Minister Alexei Reznikov said Saturday that he is convinced that Russia will soon start to withdraw from all other areas. I'm convinced that after a few more successes on the front, even the small ones, the Russian troops will start fleeing, he says in an interview translated by Pravda. Today we have been destroying their supply chains, warehouses, and so on. He said Russian morale will fall like an avalanche, with each line of defense falling one after the other. He was foreshadowing what actually happened throughout the week. Earlier, Saturday spokesman for the Ukraine's foreign ministry, Ole Nikolenko, suggested that the Ukrainian troops had retaken the town of Kupiansk, situated along the main supply route to Izium. A photo posted later by the Security Service of Ukraine showed soldiers in the strategically important town, suggesting that it was retaken by Ukrainian troops. Like that picture there. The UK Defense Ministry assessed Russian forces were likely taken by surprise. The sector was only lightly held, and Ukrainian units have captured or surrounded several towns. This came from the British Defense... Was it? British Defense Agency or something like that.
Ministry?
Yeah, Defense Ministry. Thank you. They said that, let's see, noting that its capture would be a significant blow to Russia's supply lines. Zelensky had repeatedly warned his troops and officials not to release details of the counteroffensive publicly, and he renewed these warnings Friday night. Basically, don't tip your hand until we actually do it. That's a really smart tactic. Scott and I are kind of war history buffs. And one of the things I watched today was actually something to do with the Kriegsmarine. And this is the same type of thing because the Kriegsmarine were stationed in Lorient, which is in France. And, you know, if you're having a night on the town because you know you're about to go out to sea, your crew is going to go out and get drunk and loose lips sink ships, right? So what they would do is they would not tell anybody what the mission was until they were underway. That way, loose lips don't sink ships. Well, Zelensky's saying the same thing. He's like, don't tell the troops in the officer corps what the details of your counteroffensive is until you have to go and execute them. Otherwise, you tip off their hand. Very smart. Anyway, he says, please do not hurry with the reports. Do not complicate the task of our army with your haste. Please do not report the specific details of the defense operation earlier than the official representatives of our state will be allowed to say about it. So, keeps a tight lip. Zelensky said national police units were also returning to the liberated areas of Kharkiv. So, that was the beginning, Saturday, of major advancements in the retaking of his country, which ended up being over 2,300 square miles, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is quite a bit when you see how the northeastern quadrant of Ukraine was occupied by Russian forces. It was a long, thin front. So the square mileage of that is small. So to take back 2,300 miles of that is huge. They've literally pushed Russia back to their side of the border in a lot of the areas that were once held by Russians since February. That's incredible. Anyway, moving on. Next one is for Sunday, September 11th, day 200. I have this photo for you. You are probably familiar with seeing these reactors because we have shown you them for months. That is reactor number 1 at Zaporizhia. The Russian-held Zaporizhia power plant in Ukraine has halted operations as a safety measure, according to a Sunday statement from I always have a hard time with this. Energoatom, the state agency in charge of the plant. The plant is completely stopped after Energoatom disconnected the number 6 power unit from the grid around 3:40 a.m. Preparations are underway for its cooling and transfer to a cold state, the agency says. On Wednesday, Ukraine's capital city of Kyiv, last Wednesday, Ukraine's capital city of Kyiv urged residents of Russian-occupied areas around the plant to evacuate for safety reasons. Russia and Ukraine have accused each other of shelling the nuclear plant, risking a nuclear disaster. Ukrainian President Zelensky has requested that the surrounding area be demilitarized. Energoatom said that it restored a communications line to the power system to operational capacity on Saturday. The agency said that the line had been damaged by Russian shelling, which allowed the plant to be powered by Ukraine's energy system. Therefore, a decision was made to shut down power unit number 6 and transfer it to the safest state, cold shutdown. The energy said that the risk of the line enduring further damage remains high. This would force the plant to be powered by diesel generators, the duration of which is limited by the technological resource and the amount of fuel of diesel available. Now, I left a note at the bottom of this story, and some of you are going to go, you're going to have a light bulb go off in your head when I say this. But do you remember weeks, maybe months ago, that I mentioned, that the future of wars that have nuclear plants in the countries will probably have a new doctrine in place that if their country is a combat zone, to shut down your reactors to a cold state so the invading army doesn't weaponize it as a dirty bomb. Don't you remember me saying that like weeks or months ago? They finally figured it out in Ukraine. They finally did it. I mean, I'm glad they did, but they should have did it back in like March. Now, yes, there would be rolling brownouts and blackouts. And yes, there was a story following this one. I didn't put it in my stories of the day, but there was a story following this one that said towns in the eastern part of Ukraine were experiencing rolling brownouts and blackouts. But a lot of the people that live in these places sort of understood the reason why and just grit their teeth and bared it because they see the wood for the trees. They see the bigger picture here. I'd rather have a rolling brownout than having my country glow like radioactive glass. Like, they see the bigger picture here. I'm just glad that they finally caught on. And I'd still maintain that once this war is over, either the IAEA, NATO, the UN, or a combination of all of them, they're going to create a protocol. Maybe they'll call it the Zaporizhia Protocol, where if you're a country under invasion or siege, you will shut down all your reactors and remove all your fuel rods, and take them to a safe location, even if it means taking it to another country for safekeeping. Just
You know what the problem with that is?
what?
It takes months and months to move fuel rods.
How long did it take Russia to amass an army before they invaded? A year. They had time. They had time.
No, this was a Russian.
And who's to say that there's no way to streamline and hurry up the process in case of an emergency? Like there are certain protocols you would sort of, I don't know, cut corners just to get it done in the name of expediency. I'm sure you're right. I'm sure it does take a long time. But it takes a long time under peacetime conditions, right? It takes a long time to build a battleship or an aircraft carrier in peacetime conditions. Look how fast we built Liberty ships in wartime conditions. Look how fast we built B-24 Liberators at the, I forgot the name of the plant, but it's in Detroit. It was a Ford motor car plant. They were building Liberators like once an hour, or was it once a day?
Once a day.
Was it once a day? They built one complete one a day. I forgot the name of it. Like my dad would smack me because he worked there. Anyway, you get the point. I'm sure there's a way to streamline it if need be. Moving on. We're going to move on to Monday, September 12th, day 201. And I'll have this photo for you of that. Oh, can you see the similarities in that picture and that picture? That picture and that picture. Yes, I morphed the faces. Anyway. Yes, I morphed the faces. Russian TV pundits. Their version of Don Lemon. Their version of... What's that other guy? The bald one with the big smile?
Brian Stelter.
Yes, him. Brian Stelter. Their version of Whoopi Goldberg and all the other sexless old cows from The View. Russian TV pundits, so their version, are openly questioning Russian President Vladimir Putin's war in Ukraine after Ukrainian forces handed the country a stunning defeat last week.
Ooh.
Ukraine's military swept away Russia's forces in the northeast Kharkiv region with a surprise counteroffensive that lasted through the weekend. Russians were quoted as saying, "Oh shit, I've lost my Kharkivs." Sorry, that's my joke. Former member of Russian parliament Boris Nadezhdin declared that it was impossible for Russia to beat back the Ukrainian offensive during a Monday appearance on Russian state TV.
Yeah.
He's probably in a gulag right now or in a Siberian salt mine wearing his wife's head as a hat.
Awesome.
Yeah. We're now at the point when we have to understand that it is absolutely impossible to defeat Ukraine using these resources and colonial war methods with which Russia is trying to wage war, using contract soldiers, mercenaries, no mobilization, Nadezhdin said. He went on to protect Putin from any criticism, however, stating that Russia's leader must have been misinformed by his advisors.
You think?
The president didn't just
Slightly.
sit there and think, why don't I start a special operation? Someone told him that Ukrainians will surrender and that they will flee, and that they'll want to join Russia. Someone had to be telling him all this, he added. Multiple reports stated that Russian troops dropped their weapons and fled during last week's offensive. I'm going to start sending them French flags. Ukrainian troops advanced 30 more miles in the first 3 days alone, liberating roughly 1,150 square miles as of Sunday.
Wow.
They came into our houses to take clothes so the drones wouldn't see them in uniforms, local resident Elena Matvienko told the Washington Post. They took our bicycles. 2 of them pointed guns at my ex-husband until he handed him his car keys. Wait, what were you doing in the same house with your ex-husband? Oh, I get it. He handed him the car keys, and then you said, I'm not going to be married to no bitch. And then you said he's your ex-husband. Got it. Strategic intelligence expert and author of Putin's Playbook, Rebecca Koffler, cautions those who expect a wider Russian retreat, however, saying it would be very unlike Putin to run. Many believe that Russia will now retreat, given that there are signs that the momentum on the battlefield may be shifting again in Ukraine's favor. But it will be the opposite. Putin is cornered, and when cornered, he fights back much harder with brutality. Now you getting the idea where I came up with this idea for the show? His psychological profile is such that he cannot accept defeat until it completely consumes him. You see, she has a psychology background, which is why I read this, which is why I picked this theme today. He also absolutely cannot afford defeat in Ukraine because of his whole post-Cold War strategy for Russia hinges on the concept of reintegration of former Soviet states back under Russian control. Now again, I'm going to refer you to even the very first episode of the War Room. Vladimir Putin every night sits in a wingback chair and jerks off feverishly, clutching at his tinkle, jerks off to a map of Cold War Russia 1963. I promise you he does. He jerks off to it. He probably has bed sheets that look like that map. And all his little spooge splorch marks all over the sheets are the key cities he wishes to take back. Because he jerks off to that map. I'm telling you, he's a sick little boy, and he can't stop clutching his tinkle. I'm telling you. Serial masturbator. I'm telling you right now.
That's awful, man.
Telling you. I'm telling you. That just took a dirty turn. It's a good thing we're not monetized, because that would totally demonetize us. Moving on.
Right?
Huh?
You think?
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time shaking the image of bald little Putin jerking off in a wingback chair now. Sorry. Tuesday, September 13th. We're getting through these pretty well. Day 202. Where is that picture? Ah, I called it too fucking bad. Here you go. The United Kingdom has reportedly not extended invitations to Russia and Belarus and Siam? No, Burma, to attend the funeral of one Queen Elizabeth II, snubbing these countries responsible for the ongoing invasion or support of the ongoing invasion of Ukraine. Now, I'm going to go ahead and take a gamble here and say that they didn't invite China either, or North Korea. Just a hunch. Just a hunch.
Yeah, there's no more. They have no more reason to play nice with China, considering they gave Hong Kong back.
Correct. The Queen's state funeral is scheduled for September 19th. I believe that's Monday. And the country has invited roughly 500 foreign diplomats, including many heads of state. Moscow attempted to get ahead of the snub last week by announcing that Russian President Vladimir Putin would not be attending the funeral. That's like, you can't fire me, I quit. The UK has also snubbed Burma, which has long been the subject of UK economic sanctions. President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden have confirmed they will attend the funeral. Good, maybe they can try the burial plot on for size. The UK, US, and allies have carried out an expansive campaign to support Ukraine against the Russian invasion, both with economic sanctions and military funding. Belarus has played a key role in facilitating Russia's aggression, allowing Russian troops to travel freely within its borders to assail Ukraine from multiple angles. The snub comes at an embarrassing time for Russian troops, who just suffered a crushing defeat at the hands of a Ukrainian counteroffensive. Ukrainian troops say they have regained more than 1,100 square miles of territory in the country's northeast Kharkiv region. The day of the Queen's funeral will see a military procession carry her coffin from Buckingham Palace to Westminster Abbey, where her service will again be held. Because if you saw my breaking news the last couple days, that's where it was held the other day. It will be the first time a British monarch's funeral has been held in the Abbey since the 1700s. The Archbishop of Canterbury and the Dean of Westminster will lead the service with sermons before newly minted Prime Minister Liz Truss is called to speak. Now, you're probably wondering why I brought up the Queen when I was trying to say, when is this going to be a Broken Arrow moment? He's taking defeats militarily. He has taken defeats economically. He has taken defeats via sanctions. This is also a defeat. It is a public humiliation to be a world leader expelled from what Britain would consider the most important day in their history for quite some time. The next time something this important will happen in Britain will probably be about a year from now, if history's a good teacher, for the coronation of King Charles III. For those of you who don't know, King Albert died in 1952. Queen Elizabeth ascended the throne the same day, but she was not officially coronated until 16 months later, because they thought it was poor form to have a celebration of a new monarch with the death of the old one. It's just rude, right? So, realistically, this is the most important day in UK's modern history for at least until the coronation of King Charles. And I know I'm going to take some shit from this. There's an over-under if King Charles will actually live to see his coronation, because he is 74. Just
Do you
saying.
see his fingers?
Yeah, just saying.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's.
I got nothing against the guy. I even said it in my last video. I don't say it to be rude. I don't say it to mock them. I just do it out of respect for the tradition. Long live the king. We had one too. He was named Elvis. Just saying.
I was going to say George Washington.
No, Elvis.
He was offered to be king.
No,
he didn't take it.
We had two kings.
King Ralph doesn't count.
No,
Hey.
it wasn't King Ralph. We had Elvis, and then we had Michael Jackson,
Okay, I'm with you. I got you.
King of Pop.
I really have very little interest with England.
We had the Prince of Darkness too. Technically, he was living here already.
No, he moved home.
He
But
moved on.
before then. Anyway, let's move on. Albert in a can. What? Okay, moving on. New photo. Mikey, extra credit if you can identify what's left, what tank that is, and, well, what's left of it, obviously.
I have to wait 30 seconds for it to show up on the.
Fair enough. No rush. I'll go ahead and read the story while you do that.
Okay.
Russian forces are withdrawing from areas now. This is Tuesday? Yeah. Okay, so remember, we're playing catch up to today, so now we're on to Tuesday's news. Russian forces are withdrawing from the areas in the Luhansk region, not the Donetsk region. That was the one before. Local officials said Tuesday, marking the latest developments in Ukraine's counteroffensive as its soldiers pushed eastward. Governor of Luhansk, Sergei Haidai, took to Telegram to say that the city of Kreminna, first occupied by Russian forces in April, had once again raised the Ukrainian flag over their buildings. It remains unclear why Russian forces have apparently withdrawn from the area just 15 miles north of the strategically important city of Sievierodonetsk. That is really hard to say. And
Honestly,
nobody out there could confirm if Ukrainian
It really-
soldiers had yet advanced on Kreminna.
It really looks like a T-72, so I have no idea.
You would be correct. That is a T-72.
Yeah.
Well done.
Fuck Luhansk and fuck Donetsk.
Kreminna
But-
is completely empty.
But
The Russian
remember
army has
what I
left the
said
city.
before. The T-92 or the T-90 tanks were only
Upgraded
just
72s.
T-72Bs.
I know.
So
That is actually a 72, though.
that is an actual term.
The Russian army has left the city, Haidai said in a statement translated by Ukraineform. Ukrainian forces have seen recent victories in the neighboring Kharkiv region since launching a major offensive earlier this month and advancing towards Izium, just 55 miles west of Kreminna.
Russian T-90.
The UK Ministry of Defense. That's the name I was looking for. I think Scott said that one, so yeah. UK Ministry of Defense said Tuesday that elements of Russian forces in the region have withdrawn. I just did air quotes there. And over the weekend, Russian Defense Ministry spokesman Igor Konashenkov was quoted as saying that troops were being regrouped in areas like Balaklia and Izium, once hotbeds for fighting and strategically vital for Moscow to resupply its troops in eastern Ukraine. It has to be because they blew up all the other bridges around Crimea so they can't get in or out. That was from weeks ago. So they had to use their contingencies. Now the contingencies are being evacuated. So, Russia has yet to confirm its troop withdrawal. But according to the UK Ministry of Defense, Ukrainian soldiers have recaptured some 1,200 square miles in less than a week. So they added 100 square miles in 24 hours from the previous story, which is good.
Good for them.
The ministry said that one of Russia's top fighting forces, the 1st Guards Tank Army, suffered catastrophically heavy losses at the beginning of the war and has now been made unable to fully reconstitute ever since. That's
Oh,
one of their
too bad.
that's what's left of one of their tanks in that picture.
That's too
Basically,
bad.
they got decimated and they can't regroup. Not enough tanks, not enough people in them. Moving on. The ministry described the military unit as one of the most prestigious of Russia's armies, allocated for the defense of Moscow and intended to lead counterattacks in the case of a war with NATO. Defense officials said Tuesday that the unit has been so badly devastated after more than 6 months of fighting that it, quote, will likely take years for Russia to rebuild this capability. It'll take you a decade, maybe 5 decades, to rebuild your tank inventory because you lost 2,200 of them. You're
Yeah.
using T-54s again. I mean, you know it's bad when you see a battalion of T-34s roll up because basically in terms of modern warfare, they're nothing more than armored personnel carriers at this point. A T-34. It's not capable of
Sean?
anything else. Go on.
I wanted to point out with the T-64s and those other Russian Soviet tanks.
54s.
The
They've
point
gone
is,
back even further.
but you know how bad they are now because they're so poorly designed.
They're not bad tanks.
No. But what's
just-
one flaw?
they're-
Despite, regardless, any Russian style tank, what's the flaw you could see in the design?
Flaw.
Like one flaw you could pick out easily.
They were the first to implement sloped armor. They were the first to implement
No, Germans.
smaller
No.
Germans
No.
copied the Russians.
Focus on the turret. No, focus on the turret. What's inside around the turret that causes it to be so weak?
Inside the turret?
Inside. What's inside the turret and the body of the tank?
You're going to tell me
Motor?
that the ammo racks are in the outer walls of the turret, or the inner walls of the turret.
Correct. Because it's circular in design with the turret, so if you hit that, they're all fucking done anyways.
You
Well, that's-
are halfway correct. You are halfway correct.
Problem with
They,
most Russian tanks.
they have a rack. See, funny enough, I get to use some of my old wargaming research that I did for them for the last 10 years. You're right. There's a rack that they clip the shells into along the back wall of the turret. They also have another set of racks that actually go around the underside of the turret ring. But, truth be told, that's where most tanks keep their munitions of that era.
Yeah, but we never did. That's
Well,
why we expect extra shit than they do.
Well, we sort of did too, actually, in the same era.
Oh,
Of the same era. Modern tanks with autoloaders, you don't have to. There's a box in the back of the turret, like the
but
Abrams.
it seems like the Russians still are sticking with the, rack.
Their Armada doesn't have it like that, but they only had a couple of those, and none of them had been deployed because they don't work. Oh wait, there's a
They have
question.
like 10 of them.
HVS asks a question. It has been put forward that the Russian withdrawal is a pretext to create a situation wherein Russia's Duma would demand total mobilization. Opinions, true or false? I guess what you're asking is if they withdraw first and regroup, they can use everything they have left? I would say that's feasible. But I mean, what do they got left? They've
Not
committed.
much.
They've committed almost everything into this already. They have recalled divisions from Russia's east, like as far as Vladivostok. They've taken conscripts from Mongolia, I think North Korea already. They've had
Yeah, no
uh,
problem.
they've had Georgians. I think is it Georgians, Kazakhs, 1/3 of Chechnya, like
Etchlings.
Syrians. They're taking help wherever they can get it. So, and in the beginning, I probably would have said, well, yeah, use up all your external resources first and save your good shit for later. This has been going on for 7 months. They've taken so many devastating losses. They're already scraping the bottom of the barrel. The only things that they have left are maybe half a dozen T-14 armadas, which may or may not work. Otherwise, they probably would have brought them on station already.
It wouldn't
Um,
use
they're already using Kinzhal missiles, not with much effect, but they're at least they have them. Um, they're already using. They're not using any of their. I forgot the name of that plane. It's the Felon. We call it the Felon. They're
Oh,
not
the
You talk about the new Russian.
Su-57. Does that sound right?
Yeah, it looks like a
yeah,
copy
that's
of Pointy
U-57.
Raptor.
Yeah. I
Because
don't.
they've only got about a dozen of them.
Yeah, and I don't think they're willing to risk losing one for reverse engineering from the enemy, either.
Well, here's the thing: half of those dozen that they have,
Yeah.
probably have no weapon systems.
Yeah, they're not
They
complete.
were strictly test beds.
Yeah, they're not complete. They're prototypes and things. You're right.
Those
Absolutely.
There's no point in sending them.
But if you got nothing else left, I mean,
You're better
remember.
off to send. You're better off to freaking pull out the MiG-17s for mothballs.
Well, yeah, but
At least they
remember
have weapon systems.
when Japanese kamikazes first flew, they used outdated planes that were already pulled off of frontline service and just turning them into floating gas cans. That's, just to get rid of them. So, if Russia's already down to T-54 tanks, I mean, the next step before that is they're going to drop down to T-42 or T-43s, which are just upgraded T-34s, which, like I said, is nothing more than an armored personnel character or carrier in modern combat. Like RPG-7 would knock one of those out. Probably a rifle grenade probably knock one. A Barrett would knock one of those out. Let's be real. A Barrett with an APDS round, AP incendiary armor piercing incendiary discard sabot, 50 cal. You could probably knock out a T-34 if you hit it in the rear, like engine,
Yeah.
So yeah, if they're already down to T-54s, which an RPG-7 can absolutely knock out, I can see them using up their stuff, their prototypes, just to get them out. What I don't see them doing, which completely goes against the whole doctrine of the place, the Kubinka Tank Museum, which I have been to, and I have seen the displays, and I would own all of it if I was Jeff Bezos. Anyway, every tank in the Kubinka Tank Museum, aside from the Mouse, is, well, actually I can't say that. Every Soviet tank in the Kubinka Tank Museum is fully operational by doctrine, because in the event of a war, if they ever had to recall them, they would take them out of the museum and use them. I don't think Putin would be that stupid. It would be like taking out fucking Korean War veterans to fight this war. Like, you wouldn't do it. You just wouldn't do it. What would you call them? The Arthritic Battalion? You just wouldn't do it. And then all that history would be lost. Like the Object 279 would be lost. You just wouldn't do it. I would hope not.
He wouldn't do it. He's not that stupid.
I'm not going to put anything past him at this point. He jerks off to a map in 1963 Cold War Russia. Just in a wingback chair. Wing with a Y. W-Y-N-G, back chair.
No, don't you blame that shit on me.
Yep.
No.
Yep, it's all you. You had Mexican food. M-Y-X-Y-C-A-N. All right. Let's move
Right,
on.
right,
Let's move
exactly from Tejas.
on.
Tejas.
Tejas, Tejas.
Damn it.
We're still on Tuesday. Okay, so I have this photo for you. I should have picked a NATO picture, but I saw that guy and I was just like, you know what? I'm going to put him up there because his hands are cold and he's doing his job, guarding that pile of dirt behind him.
He's got a pile of dirt.
It's a Ukrainian soldier, though, so no disrespect.
No,
Anyway, a former NATO deputy commander was recently quoted as saying that NATO must prepare for an all-out war with Russia, as President Vladimir Putin is expected to, quote, lash out following Ukraine's striking recapture of Russian-occupied territory that reversed 6 months of Russian gains. You see where I came up with the theme of today now? Russian forces on Tuesday withdrew from areas in the Luhansk region, marking the latest victory for Ukraine as its soldiers push eastward, reclaiming... Now, remember, this is a day later, or actually the same day, but they've got more numbers in because it was later in the day, reclaiming more than 2,000 square miles of territory in what some believe could be a critical turning point in the war. So in 8 hours, it went from... Sorry, in 24 hours, it went from 1,000 square miles to 1,100 square miles to 1,200 square miles to 2,000 square miles. That's how fast the counteroffensive is moving. UK General Sir Richard Sharif, sorry, I wrote that backwards, Sharif, said Tuesday that while Ukraine's brilliant counteroffensive operation is a total humiliation for Putin and for Russian arms, maintaining their successes on the battlefield will be a harder feat, with a Russian counterattack almost certainly imminent. It's brilliant. I think it has really far-reaching implications potentially, but let's be cautious, Sharif warned. They've achieved great success. They have to maintain that success equally. They have to be ready for the Russians to reorganize and to counterattack. Now that's a fair statement, because the same thing happened after they pulled out of Kyiv. They regrouped, they did an end around, and they attacked the northeast and southeast parts of the country. And they made a lot of gains, but 6 months later, they're back to square one, right? So they're going to pull back again. The only problem is now they have 2,200 less tanks, 233 less cruise missiles, 908 less UAVs, 55,000. It's about to go across the scroller right now, as a matter of fact.
Right.
It's going to be like, what, 55,000 less troops? 52,000 less troops? I should have made the scroller move faster. Like I'm just sitting here waiting for it. 54,050 less troops. So, how much can you regroup at this point? Anyway, with the failures of the Russian armed forces evident on the global stage, Putin is expected to order a devastating escalatory attack to reassert his strength and dominance in the region, warning that Russia's use of nuclear weaponry is still not off the table. What we would all like Russia to go pack up, go home, and forget about it. But that just ain't gonna happen, Sharif says. We have to assume that Putin could easily escalate in some other ways. I'm sure that Russia will lash out. The worst case, of course, is if Russia decides to go to a nuclear escalation. That potentially brings in the threat of their arsenal. I think they'll go biological first, if I'm honest. Sharif said NATO should prepare for the worst case in the event that Putin resorts to nuclear war. The Russian strongman has repeatedly suggested that Western interference in his invasion of Ukraine could lead him to use nuclear weapons. U.S. officials have said that Putin would only resort to nuclear war if he perceives an existential threat to Russia. However, with Ukraine's recent victories on the battlefield, he may feel pushed into a corner. See the theme? In which case, or he said, I said it before and I'll say it again, the NATO mindset needs to change. NATO really needs to be prepared for the worst case, which is war with Russia. At the same time, NATO needs to start doubling down on support and supplies of weapons, equipment, and support, with training to give Ukraine the defensive maneuver capability it needs to complete the job. So, again, didn't we already say this months ago? We're in World War III. We just don't want to admit it. We haven't said it yet. We're not.
Yeah.
We're not. You know, it's like this panel is ahead of the curve. We should be in charge because we already knew all this.
Well, it just shows you how.
Out of touch the rest of the world is.
Yeah.
Yep.
If a bunch of us. Now let's go through this really quick, okay? Warsaw is a tradesman, welder. Okay, Scott's a tradesman, HVAC and heating.
More than just that, I'm also a woodworker, by the way.
Fine. The point. I'm just getting a general overview. Night Strike and I are IT guys. I just happen to have a psychology PhD and the criminal
don't.
pathology masters. Anyway, point is, these are our backgrounds. None of us have served in an official capacity in the military. I tried many times, but they just kept fucking with me. Anyway, point is, even we can see the wood for the trees, and the rest of these, quote, world leaders can't seem to figure it out. The fact of the matter is, Putin's getting pushed into a corner. He's getting shoved into a corner. Like a 4'9" wife being abused by a 10-foot tall savage. He's getting shoved into that corner. There's a giant hand about to come down on him. And the only thing he's got left are biological and nuclear weapons. And don't think for a second he won't use them. Not when you're pushed that far. Because that's the moment where the little 4'9" lady pulls out my Colt Anaconda and fills that fucker in above him. Anyway, moving on. Okay, for some reason I have this picture titled Two Idiots. Oh, those guys. Yeah, it is Two Idiots. Wednesday, September 14th, day 203. Russia has condemned Kyiv's push for a NATO-like international security coalition as a prologue to World War III, as it faces strategic losses amidst its war in Ukraine. The Kyiv Camarilla has given birth to a project of, quote, security guarantees, which are essentially a prologue to a Third World War. This came from Russia's Security Council Deputy Chairman Dmitry Medvedev. Does that sound familiar? Because he used to be the president of Russia, and then the prime minister of Russia. But he and Putin kept playing musical chairs with the different positions of leadership. These two are your puppet masters of Russia. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
And you know, one of their lieutenant colonels or generals that died was named Medvedev too.
Was he?
You know that? Yes. So he could have been a relative.
He's not the one that accidentally fell out of a hospital window, right?
No. It's one that was killed in Ukraine.
Okay.
Probably a cousin he didn't like.
Medvedev claimed that no one would agree to any of the guarantees Kyiv is seeking from international partners, and argued that it would be tantamount to applying Article 5 of the North Atlantic Pact to Ukraine. NATO's Article 5 stipulates that an attack on one nation in the 30-member alliance, of which Ukraine is not a part of, would trigger a response from all member nations. Well, why don't we just remedy that situation right now and just make them one? Like, what excuse does the world have now not to do it? Like, one would argue, well, they didn't have a GDP or exports that would be advantageous to joining a NATO or to being part of NATO.
That was one of the major arguments, yeah.
It's like, you provide 30% of the grain to the world, and you pressured Russia to come to the negotiating table to allow the grain to flow so there wouldn't be world famine. If that's not enough GDP, then what the fuck is?
Oh.
Oh, well, because we need to see if there's enough fight in the dog for Ukraine to defend themselves. Okay. They have defended their country for 7 months now. They have pushed back a global superpower to the point that they look like fools.
Well, that's the thing. Russia's not a global superpower.
Used to be.
Haven't been for decades.
Used to be. And the world
They
still
are a regional power.
the
at
world
this
still
point.
perceives
It's their lucky
Russia
one.
as a superpower. That's the thing. Everyone's working off the reputation of the generation before it. I agree with you, by the way. It's just that's what I'm saying. It's like the image, the optics are still Russia's a
Well,
superpower.
Those were the optics then. Now, the
Now
optics
they're
now,
devastated.
they look like a joke.
They
to
look
the
like
entire
idiots.
world.
Russia is so outdated; they don't even fix their economy.
So here's the thing. Finland and Sweden were accepted in 10 days. Ukraine has applied for 8 years.
You know what?
Ukraine had to come to the negotiating table with the Russians and the Turks to export 30% of the world's grain to prevent global famine. They have proven they have something worth the GDP requirement right there. That one thing alone. Why do you need my grain to feed the rest of the world unless I made something so valuable that I had to negotiate this deal, right? That's fucking obvious. So then it was, well, we don't know. I mean, how much fight do you have in you? And we can't just let you join all of a sudden. Well, 7 months. There's more proof. So, like HVS is saying, let's go through the excuses. Number one, they don't care about Ukraine. Number two, and this is the real one, we can't trust them because they used to be Russians and they speak the same language and we can't tell commie and ally alike. That's the real reason. I guarantee you that is the reason. Because even though Ukraine is considered a part of the European continent, because they speak a similar language and have a storied history with the Soviet Union and Russia, I don't think NATO still trusts them.
Sean,
There's a trust issue there.
Sean.
What?
Does
No,
NATO
that's
trust
just,
Poland?
that's just a bad picture to think
Because
of.
their
All right,
storied history with the Soviet Union.
You might as well pick countries like Poland, Estonia, Latvia.
I know. That's all. I'm theorizing this. That's all I'm saying, because in terms of history, you have to remember, Ukraine was the step-off point for the Russian counteroffensive after the siege of Stalingrad. They were bros. They were super bros during World War II. That's what I meant by storied history together.
Yep.
Well, also don't
But
forget
the funny
they
thing is, like
he hated the
HVS
Tsar too. Don't forget.
yeah, well, the funny thing, like HVS is saying, is Russia's accusing Ukraine's of Nazism. Russia has sent a division called the Wagner Group, which is led by a Russian neo-Nazi, to a country to eliminate and eradicate what is technically his brothers. How's that work?
I don't know.
Because then
Somebody should sit down.
They're Nazi.
Somebody should sit down and inform President Vladimir Putin that there are no such thing as Nazis anymore. There just isn't. They're just a bunch of fake wannabe people
Bigots.
LARPing and jerking off to a photo of a guy who's been dead for 80 years. Nobody is still saying Heil Hitler. Somebody else would have to be in charge of that by now. And they would say Heil whoever the fuck that guy is. Most people still don't realize that Admiral Dönitz was the next Führer of Germany before the war had ended. And nobody salutes and says Heil Dönitz, do they? No. The primary reason is Dönitz hated Nazism. He was a Navy man through and through. He fucking hated it. But he was a Navyman first, and a countryman, and a patriot for his country, that is, even if he disagreed with the politics, because he still fought for his country. And you got to respect a man who does that. He didn't believe in the ideology or none of that shit, which is why nobody ever even recognizes, yeah, he was Führer. He was. He was selected by Adolf Hitler himself to take over after his death. Anyway.
Well, he was actually very anti-Jewish.
Was he?
Yes.
Just wasn't final solution anti-Jewish.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, he was like, hey, I don't like you, but I'm not trying to eradicate you. Whatever, it doesn't matter.
There's a reason why he only got 10 years in jail and not hung.
Because he
Not
was able
hung
to
permanently.
prove he was just a Navy man. Everything he did by the
Well,
book.
he had nothing to do with as far as the final solution.
Well, yeah, he was out to sea.
He stayed the fuck out of it.
Yeah.
No, he was at his headquarters in France.
Yeah. L'Orient. Anyway, let's see. Where did I leave off?
At the
I gotta find it.
submarine bunker in France.
I have to find it again.
The one they haven't torn down yet.
Because they can't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they're pride.
I found it. The article serves as a deterrent from aggressive nations like Russia, who would be forced to face off with not only the U.S. military, but 29 other advanced Western militaries as well, many of which share a border with Russia. Moscow attempted to justify its illegal invasion of Ukraine over claims that Kyiv was getting, quote, too close to NATO, and demanded that it pledge not to join the alliance. Ukraine reportedly agreed to Moscow's demand in the early days of the war when peace negotiations were ongoing, though it appears that Kyiv may not still adhere to this pledge after talks with Russia fell through amid its continued invasion. We are working to ensure that the strongest subjects of the free world become guarantors of the security of our state. This is what Zelensky says in his overnight address. Together with our partners, we have already built a powerful anti-war coalition, which includes dozens of different states. Now we are working to ensure that the most powerful states that are already helping us become a coalition of peace that will last forever, he added. Ukrainian top officials on Tuesday introduced a proposal dubbed the Kyiv Initiative that is looking to form a pact with leading world players that would solidify an international response should Ukraine once again be attacked by Russia. The U.S. was not specifically listed as a nation Ukraine is currently in talks with, though it has given substantially more aid than any other individual nation to Ukraine in its fight against Russia. Funny, we have record inflation, we're paying the world's worst gas prices and food prices right now, and yet we're still the biggest player of democracy in the world. Shocker. Let's see.
Or America, that's why.
It is unclear how the U.S. would respond to such calls, and nobody could immediately reach the State Department for comment. Head of the Office of the President of Ukraine, Andriy Yermak, held an online meeting with officials from the former Soviet nations and the Eastern Bloc, including Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Romania, Slovakia, and the Czech Republic and Hungary. Yermak called on partner states to agree to specific bilateral security guarantees in a combined framework that would be known as the Kyiv Security Compact. Let's just call it the Super Friends. Anyway. Washington has toed the line on aiding Ukraine and attempting to avoid aggravating Moscow to the extent that it prompts a global war, an outcome that Russian leaders have suggested could come should Western nations sign a security pact with Kyiv. However, Ukraine appears determined to eventually join NATO despite Russia's blatant threats. In order to successfully implement these tasks, Ukraine must get a guaranteed safety after the war. This means that we should receive reliable international security guarantees for the time period until Ukraine becomes a full member of the EU and NATO, Yermak says. You see, what is going on right now is a prolonging of the inevitable, and it's costing a country everything. Bullets, beans, antibiotics, blood,
Its own damn
people.
health.
What is the point of admitting a nation of rubble into NATO when you could have just admitted them from day one and still end up in the same conflict? Like, what was the point of saying, we don't want to provoke Russia? Listen, everything we have done for the last 7 months has been a direct provocation. Oh, well, we didn't send them F-16s to Poland, so Poland couldn't send their MiG-29s. Yeah, but you know what we did send them? Harm fucking missiles. And you know where those missiles are attached? To their MiG-29s. And do you know what those missiles do? They kill Russians. So don't
And
treat...
apparently they're Su-27s now.
Yeah, so it's like, don't fucking tell me we're not offending Russians and provoking them. Our bullets are killing them. Our missiles are killing them. Our manpads have been killing them by the dozens. Our javelins have been killing Russians by the thousands. They're already provoked. Just, you're lying to yourselves by saying, oh, if we do this one more thing, it'll be a provocation. No, fucker. We're in it. We're in it. You're better off just saying, Ukraine, welcome to NATO. Russia, get the fuck out, or you're about to incur the wrath of 30 nations. Call his bluff. Because he's got nothing left except a bunch of Roman candles with nuclear warheads.
I mean,
You
all
really-
it is, Putin's a fucking bitch in a castle. That's all he is.
All I'm saying is, you can't say that you're worried about provocation because
Yep.
you have been feeding a country 7 months of provocation already. It's just, you're not splitting that hair. Bullets kill Russians. We sent bullets. Missiles kill Russians. We sent missiles. It's just as plain as that. Anyway, moving on. Let me get the two idiots off the screen. We have 6 stories left, so we're going to get through these as quickly as possible because I want to cut this off at 2 hours, goddammit. All right. This is a photo from the town of Izium. And this is from... We're still on Wednesday. Ukrainian President Zelensky on Wednesday traveled to the recently liberated city of Izium in Ukraine's northern Kharkiv region after Russian forces withdrew from the area late last week. Before, when we looked up, we always looked for the blue sky and sun. And today, and especially the people in the temporarily occupied territories, looking up, we're only looking for one thing: the flag of our state. Zelensky said this in a flag-raising ceremony. This means that the heroes are here. This means that the enemy is gone. They ran away. It's a pretty bold statement. Ukrainian forces have regained large swaths of territory in Kharkiv and after Kyiv launched a major counteroffensive earlier in the month. Western defense officials said that Ukraine is gaining ground and has forced some Russian forces back across their own border. Mikey pointed that out earlier today. And he's right. But as Zelensky championed the successes of Ukraine, he also noted that the devastation Russia left in its wake following the 6 months of occupation. Pictures released following Russia's withdrawal showing buildings blackened and destroyed by shelling, animals wandering the streets, and according to officials, signs of torture among the dead.
Oh no.
That was a bad thing. The view is very shocking, but it's not shocking for me, Zelensky told reporters, because we began to see the same things from Bucha, from the first deoccupied territories. So the same destroyed buildings, dead
Got a
people.
point.
Yeah, he's right. The Ukrainian president's comments were in reference to the village of Bucha, a suburb of Kyiv, where bodies were found in the streets. Mass graves were discovered, and several reports of torture were told after Russia withdrew its forces in March. Remember, this is September. We have a terrible picture of what the occupiers did, particularly in the Kharkiv region. Such cities as Balaklia, Izium are standing in the same row as Bucha, Borodyanka, Irpin, Prosecutor General Andriy Kostin said. HVS says they tortured the dead. No, the dead have evidence of torture on their bodies. You know, like burn marks,
Cars,
ligatures,
bruises.
all sorts of crazy things. Yeah, stuff like that. Systematic beating, things like that. Anyway, the head of Kharkiv's prosecutor office, Alexander Filchakov, said investigators were looking into reports of civilians being killed and buried by Russian soldiers in the town of Balaklia, another town that has been retaken by Ukrainian forces in the Kharkiv region. Civilian bodies were found in the towns of Rakove and Zalichny, Wait, Zalijnich. What?
Zalijnich?
Zalijnich. Yeah, I did say that right. Zalijnich as well. Sorry, the Cyrillic's really weird. Ukrainian officials said Wednesday that numerous investigations have opened over accusations of human rights violations. Zelensky thanked his troops for their efforts in the hard-fought war against Russia and in retaking several strategically important Ukrainian cities. The last few months have been extremely difficult for you. Therefore, I am asking you very much to take care of yourself, because you are the most valuable thing we have, he says. It is not possible to temporarily occupy the territories of our state, but it is definitely impossible to occupy the Ukrainian people, he added. It's pretty good. How do you know not simple mutilation of corpses?
Denial.
No, I think I know what he's saying. There's certain things you can do. Oh, okay, I got it. I think I can answer this. If you see enough forensics long enough, I did it as part of my residency because I got double credit because nobody wanted to work the hospital mortuary. You will see evidence of abuse, torture, beatings, things like that are pre-mortem, because certain things you do to a body post-mortem look incredibly different because the dead tissue reacts differently to whatever you're doing to it, right? So like if you beat on a living human being, you get swelling and bruising and all sorts of certain things like that. Whereas if you strike a dead body where the flesh is already dead, it doesn't do that. It does different things. It completely collapses. Like, imagine taking a meat tenderizer to a steak, right? If you took a meat tenderizer to a cow, he'd kick you in the head. If you took a meat tenderizer to a steak, you squash the meat and pulverize it. It doesn't bounce back. It's kind of the same thing. Mutilating corpses, whatever you do to it, it doesn't bounce back. So it's obvious to say this happened. That was weird.
What?
I lost connection for a second. So if you're watching and you saw a little pause, apologies. I thought we got banned for a second. Like, oh God, maybe we got too real. I don't know.
We got too real.
All right, don't worry, guys.
Real.
We're back. It just there was a little.
Because you keep saying nuclear weapons.
That's probably it. Do you think they actually examined the dead?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
I think
right.
on a cursory glance, yes, because you have to remember when
gotta identify 'em.
Ukrainians exactly when Ukrainians came back to reoccupy towns, the first thing they did was they interviewed the locals that were still in the region, and they said, "What did you remember? What did you see?" And then if their locals are like, they took people, they lined them up in the street, they picked them one by one. That was the last time we saw them, and then we saw a truck come full of bodies. They buried him out in that field over there 2 months ago. Well, 2 months ago, after they buried it, the ground would be settled, right? It wouldn't really look like you buried something. I know this because I lost 2 puppies last month, and I had to bury them, and now you can't even tell I buried them. Go
What
figure.
puppies?
The headstone's there. That's how I know I buried them. I don't want to talk about my puppies. Anyway, point is, yes, I think they examined the dead because they had to identify them and basic, this is what happened. I'm sure maybe some of it might be propaganda, but it's propaganda based in evidentiary fact. Does that make sense? Like, yes, you can have propaganda if it's based in fact. It's very strong propaganda because you have something to back your claim. Propaganda is not a bad word. It all depends on your spin, I guess. And if you're trying to motivate people or to get them on your side, and you're like, look, you're either with us or you're against us. Those who are against us did these things to these people that used to be your fathers or your brothers or your neighbors. Are you sure you want to be part of that? That's not bad propaganda. That's, you need to choose a side because we're about to expel your ass out of the country if you're a traitor. Anyway, you're right. It depends on what side you're on, but in all honesty, there is no side a Russian can be on right now in that country that's the right side. I'm sorry. They're just not. If they are, they defected. They defected and they're helping those that they used to attack. Just a thought. Moving
Speaking of
on.
which,
What?
Sean, since
Go
you
on.
mentioned that, did they actually still have those Russians that actually side with the Ukrainians?
Yes.
Any news from them?
Nothing of note that I'm aware of.
Because there's a few Russian pilots as well as some soldiers I know that actually defected from the Russian forces
Yes.
and actually Ukrainians.
Well, the story that not very many people are talking about is Chechnya is actually divided in 3 groups.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. One group of Chechens fight for the Russians. One group of Chechens actually fight for the Ukrainians. And one group of Chechens are still in Chechnya, and they're like, fuck off and leave us alone. We don't care about you or you. We just want to be us.
And last time I checked, that's like Belarus.
No, Belarus is split in 2. There's Lukashenko, who is, he can't call him Putin's lapdog because he's twice the size of Putin. He's the bear that Putin rides in his photo ops. And there's his following, and then there's that one woman who's sort of like, Vichy government was the bad government in France, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it was the de Gaulle part. She is a leader in exile, and she has a following. So Belarus is split in 2, as far as I'm aware. Chechnya split in 3. Georgia split in 2? I think it's 2.
Wait. Is Georgia have a following for Russia?
Half
Please
and
tell
half.
me.
Georgia's actually not very happy.
Yeah, it's half and
For
half.
what? What's going on with Georgia?
No, they've stated that they don't want to be with Russia anymore. Period.
Yeah.
Well, obviously they're independent.
When the whole Ukraine things happen, they're afraid Russia's going to attack them next.
Yeah, who the hell wants to hitch their... Who wants... What? How did that Patton saying go? Are you sure you want to hitch your wagon to a falling star?
Yeah.
That's like a... No. No. Anyway, let me move on, because 5 stories left to go. Saw Ukraine MRE review. I saw several, too. Steve 1989 MRE.
Yeah, Sean, I hate to tell you, I gotta get off. I gotta get some sleep, dude.
All right.
I'm not doing well.
It's okay. Thanks for playing along.
No problem, man.
All right, so in light of HVS's comment, I'm going to get this new story out. Let's get this story out onto a tray. Nice.
Nice.
I called it Leatherface, so try not to vomit.
Ooh.
Russia on Wednesday hit the congressional chopping block as Senators Lindsey Graham, yours,
Ugh.
and Richard Blumenthal,
Not
from
mine.
Connecticut, called for it to be added to the list of state sponsors of terrorism.
Asshole.
Well, sidebar. This is the one time in a long time that I am fully in agreement with this bipartisan proposition. Your guy, Republican South Carolina. Leatherface, Democrat Connecticut. I'm okay with this idea. I really am. I think it's fine. The pair said that they plan to introduce legislation that would add Russia to the list of 5, countering the official position of the White House. Sidebar again. The fallout of this is the Russian import ban would be permanent. That I'm not cool with, because Ivan the Bear. Tactical. Zenico. Anyway. We believe that Russia has more than earned the right to be among the pariah club of Iran, North Korea, Cuba, and Syria, Blumenthal told reporters at a joint press conference with Graham. Brutal, cruel oppression that amounts truly to genocide because people have been killed simply because they're Ukrainian. Both senators recognize that this bill runs counter to President Biden's stance on the subject, but said that they believe it has the backing of Congress after the Senate unanimously passed a resolution in July that called on the administration to add Russia to the terrorism blacklist. If we disagree on this point, it in no way diminishes our support for the administration continuing and increasing aid to Ukraine, which must continue, Blumenthal says. There's no cause for complacency. Graham echoed these comments and said, I would say that Congress has been bolder in the last several years, I think. Under Trump's watch, I pushed some ideas that I thought were good that the president was reluctant to do. Both lawmakers said that designating Russia as a state sponsor of terrorism does more than symbolically stick it to Russian President Putin, but gives the U.S. more room to hold Moscow accountable. It would really matter, Graham says. It would waive sovereign immunity regarding Russia standing in U.S. courts. They could be sued in the U.S. federal court for the damage done in Ukraine. Blumenthal also said that the U.S. has a moral authority to hold Russia accountable for war crimes. The truth is that this regime has become a terrorist state, Graham told reporters. The Russian people, I feel sorry for. Their life is pretty miserable right now, too. Both senators championed the recent battlefield gains Ukrainian forces have achieved in Kharkiv, following the launch of a major counteroffensive, and said Russia's response was telling. He is going to exactly the nations that he should belong to, Blumenthal says, noting that Putin's recent push to obtain drones from Iran and arms from North Korea. Graham said redesignating Russia as a state sponsor of terrorism affects not just Ukrainian morality, but the U.S. national security. We have a chance here to reset the world in a positive way, he told reporters. He took that quote directly from my mouth. If we can help Ukrainians defeat Putin, his ambitions to destroy Ukraine, and rewrite the map of Europe, it changes China's behavior as well, he added. You know, I agree with almost all of this. What I disagree with is actually from Graham and Bloom. I disagree with both of them at this one point. It would waive sovereign immunity regarding Russia's standing in U.S. courts. They could be sued in U.S. federal court. And then Blumenthal, we have the moral authority to hold Russia accountable for war crimes. What the fuck happened to the International Criminal Court? Let them do it. If you want to unite the world and make everyone a player in it, then don't put this on the shoulders of the United States. We can support it, but it should be done by the ICC. It should be done by The Hague. It should be done like the Nuremberg trials. Not us. All of us, collectively. If that's what you really want, leave it at the ICC level. We don't need to do it. You're shouldering a burden that we have no need to do. Like, number one, we don't have the money, the finances, or the will to do it. I'm sorry. The ICC needs to do it. I mean, I'm going to borrow a patent quote again. This is about being a good ally, right? And as a good ally, yes, the U.S. ran the Nuremberg trial. Okay, so let's talk about The Hague and the ICC. Yes, I saw Spencer Tracy do that trial in the movie.
And we didn't run it. We shared it with the British and the Russians.
Right, but our judge was the head guy, and we sort of ran it, let's be honest. They did confer all the time, though, I'll give you that. But I mean, like The Hague and the ICC, that thing. We should let that handle it. We will be a voice equal, like a Supreme Court of nations get together and do that. That's what the ICC was supposed to be, right? That's where I disagree with these guys. I do agree that we can crank up pressure on Russia. Sure, absolutely. Start sending fucking F-16s. Seriously. Or start pressuring NATO to admit the Ukraine. We have the voice to do that, and the fist and the backing to do that. If we wanted Ukraine in NATO, the United States alone could make that happen just by telling everybody else, look, if you don't do this, we're out. That's all you gotta say. If you don't do it, we're out. Because this doesn't serve a purpose anymore. We were supposed to be the watchdog of the world. They need us. If we're going to turn our back on them, then I don't want to be part of this anymore. Plain and simple. There's other reasons, and I think we've discussed many of them tonight. Why or why not that thing? Moving on. Next story is called Iranian Junk. You're going to love this. Because there it is, what's left of it.
I called it.
It's what's left of it. You know what's really strange? The remnants of that drone look like, oh, I don't know, the cross, if you're Christian, that is. Russia has deployed Iran. Huh?
Wasn't I the one that called that the Ukrainian drones were shit?
Well, if you have a minute to peek at the YouTube side, you'll see the picture I shared. It's pretty weird looking. Russia has deployed Iranian-made drones for the first time this week, according to the British intelligence reports. Russia is almost certainly increasingly sourcing weaponry in other heavily sanctioned states like Iran and North Korea as its own stocks dwindle. This came from the British Defense Ministry in their intelligence update Wednesday. A U.S. official last week said that Russia had turned to North Korea to purchase military equipment, including artillery, shells, and rockets. The Biden administration had reported in August that Russia had received Iranian drones but ran into technical problems when trying to deploy them. Yeah. I think we covered that 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
The British Defense Ministry, citing Ukrainian officials, said that Russia has now highly likely deployed the Iranian drones in Ukraine, specifically naming the Shahed 136 drone, which Ukrainian officials claim to have shot down. There's a picture. I think it's more than a claim. There's the picture. There's the evidence. It's not a claim. It's absolute. The loss of a Shahed 136 near the front line suggested that this is a realistic possibility that Russia is attempting to use the system to conduct tactical strikes rather than against more strategic targets further into Ukrainian territory. The report further notes that similar drones have turned up in attacks in the Middle East, including an attack on the oil tanker MT Mercer Street last year. 2 people died in that attack, which occurred near the coast of Oman, which is Jordan, I think.
No, it's Oman.
Oman's its own country?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Rebecca Koffler, the president of Doctrine and Strategy Consulting and former DIA intelligence officer, says that Russia's cooperation with rogue nations poses a serious risk because it further solidifies ties between these rogue nations, as well as providing Iran and North Korea a battlefield test of their weapons against NATO and U.S. military hardware. Well, honey, that picture basically says that their beta test is a resounding failure. Just saying.
Oh, just like that robotic tank Russia tried using in Syria.
Moving on.
That went
Thursday.
so well.
Yeah. We're at Thursday. Thor's Day.
Thor's Day.
Just not Thor's Love and Thunder, because that was just 2 hours of woke garbage. That was crap. Anyway, can you tell I watched it? Anyway.
Yeah, Matt liked it, though.
He likes anything Marvel. I
Yeah,
wanted
true.
to like it. Believe me, I wanted to like it. It's
You sure he didn't like it just because Natalie Portman was in it?
No. She's still good looking-ish. No. It was just... Okay, I didn't really want to tangent into this, but Jesus Christ. You want to talk about hammering an agenda down your throat? Everyone was gay in that movie. Everyone. Like, they needed you to know everyone's gay. Like, they're all gay. Live with it. And I'm just like, whatever. What's that got to do with the story? That's all it was. It was 2.5 hours of they're all gay. It's like, great, I guess. Whatever. Did I need to have that in my Marvel movie? Guess so. Then I watched Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings, and not terrible. Not as terrible. Wasn't bad. I got to watch Moon Knight this weekend, hoping it's not 3 strikes and I'm out. God. Anyway. Next story. It's called Winning! All capital letters. That dude's pretty chill up on that. I think it's a BMP 21, right? No, it's whatever newer. Anyway. We are now at Thursday, September 15th, day 204, so we're almost done. Russia's command and control in Ukraine is seeing a complete breakdown. This came from UK's intelligence, their defense ministry, in their Thursday update, noting that some Russian troops are now withdrawing in absolute panic. That was in quotes. Ukraine has made some significant advancements in the northern regions of Kharkiv since first launching a long-awaited major counteroffensive earlier this month. And according to Ukrainian President Zelensky, some 400 towns and cities have been liberated, including strategically important positions like Izium. Almost the entire region has been deoccupied, he said in an address Thursday morning. It was an unprecedented movement of our warriors. Ukrainians once again managed to do what many considered to be impossible. Western defense officials have also noted the success of Ukraine's military and said that some Russian forces have been forced to retreat across their own borders. The way in which Russian forces have withdrawn in the last week is varied, the UK Defense Ministry said in its daily briefing. Some units retreated in relatively good order and under control, while others fled in absolute sheer terror and panic. The ministry said some high-value equipment had been left abandoned by Russian forces, who officials said they believe were taken by surprise by Ukraine's counteroffensive. Could you imagine? I mean, what more could they have left behind when Ukrainian farmers are towing tanks away, saying, this is mine.
Very specialized electronic warfare unit.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You did mention that.
Which gives us a huge advantage in analyzing those.
You're going to love this one. Reports this week shows that Ukrainian troops, this isn't alleged, shows that this week Ukrainian troops captured or destroyed 100 tanks in 100 hours in its eastward campaign. That's got a nice ring to it, doesn't it? 100 tanks in 100 hours. UK defense officials noted Kyiv had crushed part of Russia's elite 1st Guards tank army, which described it as one of the most prestigious of Russia's armies, allocated for the defense of Moscow. It will likely take years for Russia to rebuild this capability, the ministry said this week. Ukraine's defense ministry on Thursday claimed to have destroyed over 2,000 tanks, 4,600 armored vehicles, 1,300 artillery launchers, and 900 drones since the beginning of the war, also known as My Scroller. Among the highly prized items left behind were capabilities essential to enable Russia's artillery-centric style of warfare, Western defense officials have said. At least one counter-battery radar system, known as Zoopark, and at least one IV-4 artillery command and control vehicle were simply left abandoned by Russian troops. Such abandonment highlights the disorganized retreat of some Russian units and likely localized breakdowns in command and control, the UK Defense Ministry says. That was the conclusion of their report. Yes, HVS, we did leave stuff in Afghanistan. And for those of you who probably heard the early war rooms or come and hang out in my lobby throughout the week, you've probably heard me shout this phrase, "Where's my fucking MRAP?" Because if you can afford to leave them in Afghanistan, you can afford to drop one off in my driveway. So yes, I'm very, very familiar with that. I'm pretty sure Scott would like to have a helicopter, like a Black Hawk or something too.
No, I do not want to crash one.
Fine. How about one of those CH-53 Super Stallions or whatever those are called?
Nah.
I mean, think on the bright side. If it ever breaks down,
You need
Gavin
like
can
3
fix it.
people to fucking fly him.
Yeah, but if it ever breaks down, Gavin can fix it.
AH-64 or nothing.
Fine. Did we leave any of those there?
No, but I could borrow one from Poland.
Ah, see, HVS is asking the question that I also asked before. Where's my 4-tube night vision? Some fucking
That hasn't fallen off the back of the truck yet.
no, some fucking tally in Afghanistan's wearing it right now. Like, he's probably wearing 4-tube nods right now, sneaking around the camp and dipping his comrade's hand in a warm bowl of water and giggling when he pisses himself. That's the kind of shit that's going on. We have left military grade toys to actual adult age children. So leave me some.
Yeah,
so
and
I
if you saw that helicopter that crashed, you know what happens when you do that.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. We're now at Friday. Got 2 stories left. We're going to get through this. Sorry, we
No,
went
we're
past
not.
2 hours. We are.
Nice.
Second to last story. Penultimate story. 2:48 this morning, actually, because you got a +7 for Germany, so it's actually 9:45. Anyway, an oil subsidiary in Germany previously controlled by a Russian oil giant is now under the control of the German government, it announced Friday. The German government says it has seized control. Seized control. I like the sound of that. Of Rosneft Deutschland and RN Refining and Marketing, 2 companies owned up until now by multinational oil and gas company Rosneft. The government said that the move would ensure continued oil production as the international community looks to cut its oil dependence on Russia. Sorry. Having a hard time reading. I'm getting tired. Germany's economy ministry said Friday that the companies will be put under the control of the Federal Network Agency. The ministry also said that the agency will assume control of the company's shares in 3 refineries, PCK Schwedt, Miro, and Bayern Oil. Bayern Oil. Hey, there's a battleship that was named Bayern. Anyway, the ministry said that the acquisition will last for 6 months. No, it won't. It'll last forever. War reparations. That's what they'll call it. The Schwedt refinery supplies about 90% of Berlin's fuel, and Rosneft Deutschland is one of the largest oil processing companies in the country, accounting for 12% of Germany's oil refining capacity. The move comes amid a larger package by the German government to seek alternatives to Russian oil, which it intends to announce later Friday. Rosneft previously said it had no intention to stop import of Russian oil. A European embargo on Russian oil is set to be enacted on January 1st, 2023. So yeah, Germans said, "This is my." They had a Captain was it Captain Phillips? They had that moment. Look at me, look at me. This is my refinery now. Basically, that's what they did. We are the refiners now. And the last story of the day. And before anyone says it, because I know one of you is going to look at this and go, "Nuh-uh, that's a Swedish manpad." Yes, that is a Charles Gustav. I know. Don't worry, we're going to get through this. Russia's ambassador to Germany, Sergei Nechayev, told state-owned media on Friday that Germany has, quote, crossed a red line. You didn't make that. I made that red line. Anyway, crossed a red line by providing arms to Ukraine. Supplying the Ukrainian regime with German weapons is not only against Russian servicemen, oh, that sound familiar? But also against the Donbass civilians, Nechayev told RT. It is certainly the red line which the German authorities should not have crossed. The ambassador's comments came one day after German defense officials pledged weapons and equipment for Ukraine as it faced the backlash at home and abroad for not doing more. 2 multiple launch rocket systems known as Mars 2, 200 missiles, and 50 Dingo armored personnel carriers will be sent to Ukraine, Defense News confirmed Thursday afternoon. Germany will also work to finalize a swap with fellow NATO member Greece that will see Berlin send Athens 40 Marder infantry fighting vehicles, as Greece deploys 40 of its BMP-1 infantry fighting vehicles to Ukraine. Defense Minister Christine Lambrecht reportedly confirmed. Little quick sidebar here. Does that exchange of equipment sound familiar? It should. Because what's happening is Greece committed to send 40 BMPs from its own inventory to Ukraine. Here, take these. Then Greece turns around and says, oh my God, we don't have any infantry fighting vehicles anymore. We donated them all to Ukraine. And Germany's like, I got you, bro. Here's 40 Martyrs. We're going to backfill your inventory. So Greece gets an upgrade. Ukraine gets Greece goodies. Doesn't that sound familiar? The only difference is the United States is not involved. Poland was going to send MiG-29s to Ukraine. We were supposed to sell F-16s to Poland. We weren't going to give them to them. They said, look, we're going to send Ukraine our MiG-29s, and then we will buy your F-16s, which means we make money, which means people go to work and build F-16s, which is something that they don't do very often in South Carolina where they build them. I think they were building, what, one a month? Something like that? Now they've got orders rolling the fuck in, which means they're going to have to hire more people, which means more people are going to go to work, which means more people have more money in their pocket. It's almost like they're rebuilding the economy. Holy shit. But no, we couldn't do that because we can't give F-16s to Poland, and Poland can't land MiG-29s in Ramstein Air Force Base to make the exchange, because that'll provoke the Russians. Shut the fuck up. Anyway, sidebar over. Germany will also work to finalize a swap with NATO. I already said that part, didn't I? Okay. The announcement is not the first time Germany has appeared to backtrack its stance on sending more aid to Ukraine after suggesting its own stocks were vulnerably low. Lambrecht's decision comes just days after Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba slammed Germany for its refusal to send military vehicles earlier this week. Quick little sidebar. That's the second time they had to talk shit about Germany to get Germany to send stuff. Because the first time they talked shit to Germany, Germany sent Panzer Haubitzes, which are some of the finest ground-based anti-aircraft units known to man. And they sent them, but only after getting browbeat by Ukraine. This is the second time, and now they're getting all of Greece's BMPs. See a pattern here. Disappointing signals from Germany while Ukraine lends leopards and martyrs now to liberate people and save them from genocide. Not a single rational argument on why these weapons cannot be supplied, only abstract fears and excuses. Kuleba said in an unusually fiery message. What is Berlin afraid of that Kyiv is not? Kuleba's comments came after Lambrecht said Monday that Germany could not send Ukraine tanks or other vehicles despite its pleas, as it makes gains against Russian forces on the front lines. It's not so simple to just say, I'll just risk that we won't be able to act the defense of the country by giving everything away, she reportedly said. No, I won't do that. But we have other possibilities from industry with our partners. Russia has repeatedly used escalatory language regarding Ukrainian arms supplies from the West. Foreign Minister Maria Zakharova on Thursday warned the U.S. that sending Ukraine longer-range missiles like the Army Tactical Missile System, which has a range of roughly 185 miles, would again be a red line crossed. The Biden administration has repeatedly said that it does not intend to send longer-range missile systems to Ukraine, citing fears over sparking a third world war. Oh noes. We'll send you missiles that'll fire 184 miles. But if we go one more mile, that might trigger a third world war. Oh noes. Oh noes. What do you guys think? Do you think if we do that, it'll send, the message that we're into a third world war? That one extra mile? I mean, I don't know. Sometimes we're constantly told that one extra inch makes all the difference, right? Well, some of y'all. I don't have that problem. Anyway, either y'all fell asleep or I burned you out and your ears are
You
just...
burnt us out.
I know. It's been 2 hours, 16 minutes. Many other things. We did ask... Actually, I guess the one thing before I end the show is... will Putin have a broken arrow moment? Do you think so? Do you think he hasn't been pushed into a corner enough?
Not yet.
How much more do you think he has to take before he finally says, fuck him if they can't take a joke?
Here's the thing. He's used... Look at what he's used so far. He's used normal army and maybe normal Air Force. He hasn't used any of the specialized forces. Like, where's Spetsnaz?
No, dude. He has.
Spetsnaz.
He has. That's the whole point. Yes. He put his elite tank battalion out there. The guys who defend the capital. And they got completely decimated. All of them are gone. He put the frontliners out there. They're gone. That's what those stories were. It'll take them years to get that back. Because they don't have the men, the equipment, the training, the leadership. They're all dead. They're gone. How much more of a corner has he got to be in?
Who knows?
To be fair, I don't fully agree with it either. I think he'll go biological first. Because you can use biological weapons and bacteria and things will die off over time. You can decontaminate, whatever, no long-term things with radiation. I think he'll go that route first. Just look at his record in Syria. I would say he would go that far. I'd say nuclear probably still a possibility, but not before biological. I think he'll go biological first. Scott, what do you think?
I don't think he'll use it.
Nukes or bio?
Neither.
Really? You don't think he'll go biological? Even though he's done it before?
No. Not in Europe, he hasn't.
In Syria.
He has more to lose.
Syria's the Middle East. Nobody gives a shit about the Middle East.
He doesn't give a shit about humanity, though.
No, he doesn't. But here's the point. The faster he gets over with this whole situation, the easier it will be for him to get all those sanctions removed. And if he does anything that fucks over all of Europe or the world even, at that point...
Sanctions will never be removed.
Sanctions will never be removed, and there's no coming back from that. And only then do you use nuclear weapons.
I don't disagree with you. However, would you agree that he's never going to win this?
I don't think he is.
No.
Okay.
It's Afghanistan 2.0.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing that he's never going to win this, and at best, he retreats back to his country and escapes prosecution, would it stand to reason that sanctions against his country will never be raised until he is confirmed dead?
Even then, I don't think
so. That could be 20 more years. You see what I'm saying? Like, I agree with you. I'm just saying that I don't think, even if in his best situation where he gets to retreat and not get prosecuted, I don't think the world will lift sanctions off of Russia until they know he's dead. Because then you're just rewarding him. You didn't prosecute him. You didn't haul him off to jail. You didn't execute him. So the only thing you can do is continue to sanction him, to make his existence miserable for the remainder of his life. And then once he's dead, then you can lift the sanctions off the people of Russia. There's a side effect to this. If you do that, you're pressuring the Russian people to bring Putin to an expedient end, to get the sanctions
You mean like
lifted
the
faster.
sanctions are doing right now?
Well, what was
That's the
it?
whole point of the sanctions.
Yes and no. You see, the thing is if we keep them on him even after he leaves Ukraine, then everything is contained within his own borders. Then the only war he has to fight is against his own people. And his own people may finally rise up and try to overthrow him then. That's what I'm saying. Like, yes, sanctions are meant to pressure nations into coming to the table or changing regimes or whatever. Absolutely. But after he leaves Ukraine, when it's like when it's like the world before Ukraine began, he's being punished. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, 2/22/09. I'm gonna play this because my eyeballs hurt and I'm tired. And I think I want to play a little bit of World of Warships. That's celebrating its 7th anniversary this year. And I think Mikey will probably jump in with me unless he goes to bed. Like a bitch.
Shut up.
Anyway.
F
Anyway, if you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're a regular here, welcome back. Either way, check out my other playlist and see if my other interests may be of interest to you. This was the War Room. This was day 205. We will be back next week for day 212? Yeah.
You didn't say it.
What?
The thing.
I haven't gotten there yet.
Ah.
Anyway, thanks for watching. Slava Ukraini.
But I am Slava.
And good night.
Shall not be infringed!